Lead attorney here. Hope you guys are doing well. Now, Charlamagne the God. Oh, he is in trouble. He is in trouble. A basketball player by the name of Kwame Brown is throwing all of the shade on Charlamagne the God. He is pulling the bones out of the closet. And what Kwame Brown has just exposed and what he's talking about is the fact that Charlamagne the God pled guilty to contributing to the delinquency of a minor. Now, this is an important fact because, you know, maybe something happened in the 90s or in the 2000s, that's one thing. But now in 2021, people's past are coming back to haunt them, especially now when we have this cancel culture. And so people want to know, why was Charlamagne the God able to plead guilty to contributing to the delinquency of a minor, especially when he was accused of felonious engagement in penile vaginal intercourse with a 15-year-old child? You know, those are big differences. One thing is just contributing to the delinquency of a minor. Another thing is engagement in felonious activities with a 15-year-old child, a 15-year-old girl. Why was he able to get that reduced? So what I'm gonna talk to you a little bit about is maybe 5 reasons why that occurred. Now, I've been an attorney for about 20 years and I've seen everything. The majority of cases that I handle are family law, but I've absolutely handled my share of criminal cases in the past. I'm gonna explain to you how this plea bargain deal might have gone down. And again, this is very important. Charlamagne the God is trying to keep this under wraps, guys. He is trying to silence everyone. Kwame Brown, the man who was talking about this, just received a cease and desist letter. He's trying to shut Kwame Brown up. And I'm gonna do a video on that as well. This is important. So this is what we're gonna talk about. What is the first reason? What's the first reason of why the prosecutors allowed Charlamagne the God to plead guilty to delinquency of a minor as opposed to the felonious engagement with a 15-year-old child? Now, the first reason that prosecutors do this is because a lot of times they can't prove actually what happened. You guys might not think about it this way, but sometimes it's very hard to prove what goes on between 2 consensual people. Say you walk into a room with a woman and 2 hours passes and both of you walk out, and then you say, okay, lead attorney, tell me what happened in the room. I'm not gonna be able to tell you. I wasn't there. These prosecutors aren't there either, so they are gonna depend on testimony. They're gonna depend on evidence, cameras, and all types of circumstantial proofs that they can get to try to demonstrate what went on. In our legal system, you are not convicted, you are not punished for what you did. No one is ever punished for what they did. They are only punished for what they are proven to have done, right? And in some cases, the reverse happens. Some cases, you can be completely innocent. You could have not done an act, but a jury can be convinced that you did, and now you're punished for something that you didn't do. So whether you did something or not really isn't even the point. The point is, what can the prosecutors prove? And in this case, it could be that they could not prove that there was a sex act between the 15-year-old and Charlamagne the God. Charlamagne was 22 at the time, guys. So it's not like he was 16 or 17 years old. There's a big difference in ages between a 22-year-old and a 15-year-old. And this is what Kwame Brown is pointing out. He was like, what were you even doing in a room with this child? What were you even doing around this child, in this child's presence alone? And again, this is something that Charlamagne the God is trying to keep under wraps at all costs. He wants no one to talk about this. So that's the first reason. Maybe prosecutors were having a problem in proving what happened. Now, the second reason, and this kind of go along with the first, what you'll see in these cases is where you'll have a girlfriend-boyfriend type of situation, where Charlamagne the God is actually the boyfriend, the 22-year-old boyfriend of the 15-year-old. So what you'll see in a lot of these cases is that the 15-year-old actually loves her boyfriend. She actually loves Charlamagne the God. What does that mean? It means that she's not going to want to testify against him. The prosecutors are going to need her testimony in so many instances to be able to prove what was going on. If she tells the prosecutors that she doesn't want to testify, then that means the prosecutors are going to have to call her up and they are going to have to treat her almost as a hostile witness, because she's going to be uncooperative. There's a huge chance that she might actually perjure herself. And if she perjures herself, what are the chances that a judge is really going to send the 15-year-old to jail for lying on the stand, right? So they might not want to put that girl in this situation. And because of the 15-year-old's emotional connection to Charlamagne the God, maybe that was what convinced the prosecutors to give him that sweetheart deal. You know, it's a huge deal to go from a felonious engagement with a 15-year-old all the way down to delinquency of a minor, which in most states is a misdemeanor. So you went from a felony where you might have to register as a sex offender. That can ruin your whole career. You went from a felony all the way down to pleading guilty to a misdemeanor, and you just received maybe a fine, maybe some community service, and it's all done. And now you're able to have a public image, and you're able to start a career in the public eye without anyone raising an eyebrow, right? But if you had that felony conviction for doing activity, illegal felonious activity with a 15-year-old, that could have ruined your whole career. That could have changed the trajectory of your life. So this was a huge deal. This was a huge sweetheart deal, and it could be because the 15-year-old did not want to testify against him. Now, what's the third reason? And kind of this goes along with the first two. Maybe it was the family. Now, guys, I represented a case that was very similar to this case, to Charlamagne's case. I represented a young man. He was 21 at the time, and the girl was 15. And they had been in a relationship for about 5 months. They were boyfriend and girlfriend. And my client is accused of receiving some oral action from his girlfriend in a closet. The closet was in an apartment building that was under construction. And my client was working there, and his girlfriend allegedly came up and gave him some oral satisfaction. Now, you might think, oh, well, what's the big deal about that? The big deal was he was arrested, and the prosecutors gave us a plea offer of 60 years. 60 years to serve in prison for that activity that was consensual. And now we see a young man possibly facing the rest of his natural life in prison. Now, my client did not have to spend 1 day in prison. It all got worked out. But what you'll see in a lot of these cases is that the punishment is so drastic that the family of the victim might say, hold up. These two young people were dating, and we do not agree that this should be the punishment. It's too harsh. And they will a lot of times talk to their daughter and say, hey, you don't need to cooperate, because we cannot allow a young man's life to be thrown away based on what happened consensually, right? So it absolutely could be the parents pressuring the child not to cooperate. It could also be something else, guys. Do you know another reason why the family might not want to cooperate? Why the family all of a sudden is talking to the prosecutor saying, hey, let's just let this go? Do you know another reason? That's exactly right. You got that money, right? The money talks. And you will see this in so many cases. I think this was a huge part of R. Kelly's case. R. Kelly had a house down here in Atlanta, and he had that house packed with women, and some of them allegedly were underage. And a lot of those family members knew where their underage children were. But what did they say? At the time, they didn't say anything, because it could be with all of R. Kelly's status, with all of his fame, with all of his money, right? The families are like, hey, prosecutors, back off. Police, back off. This is something that the family and R. Kelly can work out. Why is all this police involvement necessary? Two people, a father and R. Kelly, talking should be able to get on the same page. What's the page? The page is money, right? So it could be that Charlamagne the God's family talked to the family, or talked to the prosecutors and said, hey, we need to back off this. We need to be able to plead to a lesser charge so this thing doesn't get out of hand. and maybe the family of the 15-year-old was fine with whatever they worked out, right? So that is absolutely a possibility. What is another reason? What's the fourth reason? What's the fourth reason that Charlamagne the God might have been offered this plea offer? Guys, you got to remember that no defendant, if you are accused of a crime, you cannot insist on a plea offer. A lot of times, especially in very bad cases, the prosecutor won't even give you a plea offer. You either have to go to trial or you have to plead guilty in front of the judge, and let's just see what the judge gives you. But the prosecutor will not give you an offer. It won't be 40 years to serve, 60 years. They'll say, listen, you got to roll the dice. You either plead guilty and take what the judge gives you, or you go to trial and see what the jury gives you. But we are not going to participate at all. So Charlamagne the God did not have the option to insist on that misdemeanor plea deal, right? So how did he get it? How did he get it? This is the fourth reason, and this kind of correlates to everything we were talking about before, the family. You know, Charlamagne the God is from South Carolina, and that's a small place. And you guys, you have to remember that the DA in usually every state in the nation is an elected official. And so a lot of times, especially in these small towns, the parents will go to the DA and say, listen, you know us, we've been to church together. You know our son, Charlamagne the God, you've always seen him in church. You know, this is not the way that this case should be handled. He's 22 years old, he's got his whole life ahead. We should not be able to throw this young man's life away. A lot of times, especially in these small towns, the family will go directly to the district attorney's office and talk to him. And if there's a tight bond, they can exert a lot of influence. A lot of influence. You guys need to know that in small towns, everyone knows each other. And it could be, if I'm not sure Charlamagne the God's standing, his family standing in the community, but it could be that maybe the community itself was like, hey, don't do this to this young man. Allow him to plead guilty to something that maybe to a lesser charge, something that will not affect him, and allow this young man to have a future. In these small towns, guys, this happens every day. You guys might not see it in a big city like a New York or Los Angeles, but in Mississippi, in Arkansas, in South Carolina, in South Georgia, this is the way that so many of these criminal cases are handled. It's all kind of back deal. It's all kind of under the table type of dealings. And so I see this all the time. And this could absolutely be yet another reason why Charlamagne the God was able to receive such a sweetheart deal. Now, what's the fifth reason? The fifth reason, guys, is something that you all know, especially if you've been arrested. It is the quality of your attorney. The quality of your attorney. Some attorneys can get great plea deals where others cannot. They cannot. You see this a lot if you go to any prison or any jail and you ask anybody in there how they feel about their public defender. Ask any person in prison how they feel about their public defender, and almost all of them have negative things to say. They will tell you that usually private attorneys are better than public defenders. Private attorneys have more resources. They have more motivation. They're not so swamped with case loads of 500, 700 cases. They can pay more time. They can pay more time and more attention to your case. And it could very well be that the difference between a private attorney and a public defender results in the difference between a plea offer that's a felony and the plea offer that is a misdemeanor. And it could be that Charlamagne the God's family had access to a good attorney. I can tell you, I have been an attorney for 20 years, and I have seen firsthand some of the things that I'm able to do that a lesser attorney is not. I'm telling you, if you have an attorney that's been practicing 2 months, guys, all attorneys, every single attorney has had their first day at work, right? If your attorney's been practicing 2 months, if your criminal law attorney has been practicing 4 months, you're probably going to go to jail, right? Because if you've been an attorney and practicing for 2 months, how much do you know? But what if your attorney's been practicing instead of 2 months? What if they've been practicing 10 years? What if they've been practicing 20 years? You see a huge difference between a 20-year veteran and an attorney that's been practicing for 4 months. So if he had the type of attorney that was able to go into that district attorney's office, sit down with the prosecutors and say, hey, listen, you know me, you know if we go to trial, I'm gonna put it on you, right? And you don't wanna lose, you have your reputation, you want your numbers to be up, you want your convictions to be up, you wanna be able to show that you have a high conviction rate. Let's just go ahead and plead this out. Give me a deal. You know, I've talked to my client. We are certainly willing to take a misdemeanor charge and we will plead guilty today. And it could very well be that you catch the prosecutor on a good day and he says, fine. He draws up the paperwork, your client comes in, you plead guilty to the misdemeanor, you don't have to register as a sex offender, your career is saved, and everything is done, right? Guys, this is important because these are some of the reasons why he was able maybe to get this sweetheart deal that has protected him thus far. But now it's coming back. Now it's coming back on him because Kwame Brown is pulling the cover off that lid that was closed so tight, and we're able to see something that could get Charlamagne the God in some very, very deep trouble. So what do you guys think? Do you think he was actually guilty of the felonious activity with the 15-year-old child? Or do you think it was kind of all a setup? Let me know what you think. Now, none of this has been legal advice, all right? I'm not your attorney. I am the lead attorney, and I'm here to help you lawyer up.
You don't have to answer that question.
I'll answer the question. You want answers? I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth!